The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv. And the end of another week. And we will begin with our crime, because it's always
Crime
the thing
report.
that's always denied. Here's a little thing that was posted on a Fall River Reporter. Fall River police are investigating after a man fired a shot at a group of people. Shooting investigation. Then it goes on to say it, and we did not have an address, so we weren't even gonna, well, I don't even know if we were just gonna say we don't know where it is, but thankfully, somebody, I did send it to someone, one of the people who sent me this, and now we do have some corroborative evidence, or at least this is what we've been told. According to Detective Sergeant Moses Pereira, at just before 10:45 p.m., an unknown man approached a residence on the 200 block of Linden Street and fired multiple rounds at a group of individuals. So if you want to know where that occurred, it was on Linden Street, according to our reports.
We just went through that neighborhood.
Yeah, actually we did. And so it's, and it was at 10:45 p.m. So again, shots fired, but then again, what do we do in this city? We deny crime. We never have a press conference, and we pretend, and then we use the excuse that, well, it's all over the nation, but it isn't. It's not all over the nation.
It's in Chicago. It's in New York.
It's where they ignore crime.
Yep.
You go to places where crime is vigorously attacked. They have a less crime. You can't eliminate it. You would have to be, you'd have to be really naive to believe you could ever eliminate crime, but the reality is that in communities where there's aggressive policing, like New York under Giuliani, they eliminated it, and look what's happening now.
And remember, with effective district attorneys or state attorneys, or
Yep.
Whatever the state or community uses, that puts a bite into crime.
Yeah.
And we saw that here in Fall River when we had Sam Sutter as the district attorney. I mean, there was a major drop in crime.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
And that works wonders for communities. But now that we have Tom Quinn, who I have a great deal of respect for, I don't think the effectiveness of the prosecutions are there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be as aggressive.
Right.
But that's a very good point, because I think that's a hidden factor with a lot of people with the crime rates. If you look at these areas with massive crime issues, they have these Soros-backed liberal DAs who are letting all the criminals back out on the streets and not sentencing them, and all we have to do is look. This morning, I saw the report from New York. They have arrested that Marine that was ex-Marine that was holding that person on the subway.
Right.
And I saw his arrest record. He's been arrested like 48 times or something like this. But they're prosecuting him. So
the district attorney bypassed the grand jury.
And they bypassed the grand jury. So this is the problem, and I've seen it firsthand. It's not like I'm always in Fall River, because I have traveled a lot. And I still do. Once in a while I go to these conferences and stuff. Classic example is that when they went down to Austin. Now, it's Texas.
Yep.
Texas is a red state, but Austin is navy blue. They have a very liberal mayor, very liberal DAs, and that's the one. I still have pictures on my phone of people laying all over the streets.
I was going to say, people sleeping under the stairs.
And on the streets. I walked out of one of the nicest hotels in downtown where they were having the convention, and I had to trip over bodies all the time. And that's the irony of it, though. In Austin, it's a class issue. Downtown Austin is a mess. The capital, it's horrible.
Right.
Crime all over the place. Yet, when you leave the center of the city, and we did because a couple of us got together, we rented a car one day and we went down to San Antonio to see the Riverwalk and the Alamo and stuff like that since we were down there. But when we went out to the burbs to get the car, it was amazing, heavily policed. It was like a fortress out there. What they did was they put a ring around the center of the city and just let that place go.
Right.
And it's terrible because it's a nice, Austin's a nice, was a nice city. And they in essence did what they did to San Francisco, which is just let it go.
Right.
And this is what happens when you ignore crime. And it's ironic because this morning on the local news, I saw the mayor of East Providence. They showed somebody who got into a park and was doing donuts in his SUV and wrecked the park. But he's saying, listen, we want these people to know we are going to find them and we're going to prosecute them because we can't have this, because when we have to tie up time of our maintenance people in the city trying to fix a park and all the damage it does when we could be, servicing the people of the city. Now, that's a mayor that has some leadership
That's
ability.
the silver, isn't it?
The silver,
Yeah.
And, but I love it when they use these cons, because they're cons. Well, don't blame me, it's nationwide. No, it isn't. You're telling me that every city and every town in this country is like Chicago and San Francisco and Philly? These are the places where you just look, they have a common denominator. They're anti-police. They have liberal DAs. And the criminal has more rights than the public, and that's why the public is fleeing all those communities.
Right.
But again, we start, unfortunately, with shootings, and remember what our mayor's retort to that was: you don't have a bullet hole in your house, they're not really flying around the city. Well, we got a pretty good percentage of the city, and it'll get to them, just like it did to Buck County in Atlanta. The ones that were trying to secede from Atlanta, because they pay a vast majority of Atlanta's property taxes because it's one of the richest enclaves in Atlanta. Yet the crime is beginning because you just can't keep it out forever.
Right.
I mean, unless you're Nancy Pelosi and you can hire Capitol Police or something like that to surround your compounds. But the average communities, if they let it run rampant, like I said, look at I know you've been to San Francisco.
Yes, I have.
I've been to San Francisco. It was an absolutely
When
spectacular city.
When I was there, the only place that you really had a homeless problem was along Market Street, down by United Nations Plaza, and they would take baths in the fountain, and that's where they lived. I mean, that was basically where they were. They weren't down along the pier. They weren't down at the waterfront. Everything was wonderful.
Yeah, and it's fundamentally everywhere now.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? It didn't happen overnight.
No, it didn't.
People, it's just like they just dropped out of the sky, and it created a mess in San Francisco. And now you got the mayor who let it happen, whining about she wants federal assistance and everything else because they can't handle it.
Right.
Well, when you let them just, like I said, there's just tents everywhere. They're defecating on the streets and stuff like that. It's sad commentary, but that's the problem. Politics ruins everything because the credo of politics is lie all the time. Spin everything. Don't tell the truth. Just spin it.
How do you know politicians lying?
Because their lips are moving.
That's right.
But that's the problem. So look at law. I mean, look, you got Democrats saying there's no problem with the border.
Right.
It's a mirage.
Yep. There was no problem that a federal court stepped in yesterday and said, no, you can't do that.
It's a mirage.
Yep.
We got hundreds of thousands of them pouring over the border, and they've got video of them. And then you got mainstream media. None of the liberal media even cover it. It's just like the murder down in Texas when the illegal was firing his gun, and then he went next door when they told him to stop it because they had children. He went over there and he murdered the entire family, and he put a bullet in the child's head too. It was an execution. It wasn't just a shooting. It was an execution. Yet mainstream media stays away from that because that's not going to do the liberal agenda that there's nothing wrong with the border. You're not going to say that a man who had been deported 5 times and was back in here again just wiped out a family. Yet, that's not news because they call themselves journalists.
Well, what's interesting is that...
But there's no more journalism in this country. It's just like Russia, China, Nazi Germany. They're all propagandists now. They're all propagandists.
I hear you. I hear you.
You know, you got the right propagandists, you got the left propagandists. There's virtually no real news media outlets because they don't cover it. News is news. I mean, if it's news, you're supposed to report it factually and without any bias. It's an investigation going on. It's an investigation. Somebody got murdered. Somebody got murdered. You can't just cover the murders that happen by right-wing people.
Right.
You can't ignore the ones that happen by left. You can't ignore what happened in Portland with BLM. But then make a year-long news cycle on January 6th.
Right.
That is not fair and balanced. That's why we don't care.
Well,
and,
you know...
And for the record, I have never, ever said I was a journalist.
I know.
I can write, and I've written some great letters to the editor and stuff, but I did not ever take a course in journalism. I have no desire. I used to leave journalism to the journalists, but they no longer exist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I remember one of the stories about the monster in the Taunton River.
Yeah. The three-headed sea monster in the Taunton River.
That's right,
that was a good one. But,
that was a good one.
But you know, I mean, this is the problem here that this country no longer has any discourse.
Right.
No longer has any discourse. Actually, I watched a video the other day of a Yale student calling Ted Cruz a racist for his questioning of the Supreme Court justice, the female, black female. But it was a good video because then they showed his response and he completely just blew her away.
Right.
Because he said, none of my questions were about anything about her except about her record. And then he started talking about how they eviscerated Clarence Thomas, still hate him,
right,
because of his political leanings.
Correct.
And he went on about a probably 5 or 6 minute answer to that question, and when he got done, that Yale student was just like, she didn't know what to say because he had shut down her argument because he actually, for once, they didn't try to shout him down like they do now because that's what they do. They can't argue any points, and the reality is, you know, when they say you can't fix stupid, they also say, I think it was Samuel Clemens who said, never argue with somebody that's stupid because they'll drag you down to their level and then beat you with their experience.
That's it.
Because that's what happens. Because then I saw a video, an actual video of these people going to colleges and say, do you know when Pearl Harbor occurred? These people, college students, one of them said the 80s, the other one said the 60s, one of them said 1914, World War I. They asked where Hawaii was. One said where Pearl Harbor was. They said, I think off the coast of Florida. You know, they're going to college. They're not learning anything, obviously, except how to yell at people that have a different opinion rather than having a debate.
That goes back to the elementary and high school education because that's where those things should be taught, in civics class.
Oh, no, you're right.
The problem is we don't have civics class anymore. And when I heard on the radio that Rhode Island is suffering downgrades in their scores, their test scores, including in math, English, and social studies. I'm like, you actually teach social studies? I haven't heard of it, because I don't think they teach it here. I really don't. So how low are our scores going? You'll notice they're not talking about our scores.
Well, I know the United States now educationally is like 35th in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, our educational system is the most expensive educational system in the world, and we have third world countries that are rated higher than us in all the metrics. And
But
that's
not if you're an
sad.
illegal in Massachusetts. Not if you're an illegal.
Well, no,
in
you can go to
Massachusetts.
college and get resident rates.
That's right.
But that's the key. The key is that, listen, but that's the whole key. You can't, that's why the society is deteriorating. You can't have a debate. How many times have we said, you disagree with us?
Here's the chair.
There's the hole right there.
That's
We'll
it.
slide the chair right in here,
Yep.
and we can discuss it. Mm-hmm. And we can discuss it, not just your perspective. Oh, I'm offended. Well, there's hundreds and hundreds of other viewers that watch this that are not offended. So are we going to say whose opinion are we going to take? The vocal minority, which is in today's society, that's who gets all
the press.
they win every argument.
Right.
Because it's not who agrees with the argument, it's who's the loudest in the argument.
Exactly.
Or who has the most political pull.
Right.
So you know how I feel about that.
Yep.
And how I feel about most politicians.
That's right.
So
Yep.
virtually all of them.
And we see it all the time. And what was very interesting was, while we're talking about politicians, I had a conversation this week with Michelle Dion.
Yep.
And she said that the city council still hasn't received the budget.
What's he going to try? The other 45-day deal or what?
Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. But, I guess he has to have the budget to them by the 17th. Maybe he's going to get it to them on the 17th. Yeah. But the city council meets next Tuesday. Don't you think you'd want to get it in their hands at their meeting at least?
Well, you would think that, but who cares about what you think? The reality is, listen, we do a lot of talking on this show, but we also have a lot of action. I mean, I went down to the charter, whatever they call them. It's
the
not
Charter Review Committee.
Review Committee. Mm-hmm. And I said my piece.
Yep.
And I said it, and I read them the Constitution, and I read them an excerpt from the Declaration of Independence, and I told them that, the Charter's job should be to make us live by what our Constitution says, which that all politicians are our substitutes and agents and answerable to us at all times.
Right.
Not someone with political leverage to call and make people jump. Mm-hmm. Because they don't want to be outside the political loop, and that's the problem. I said since we started this show, the problem with this country is this country began to disintegrate the day that politics became a career.
Right. Right.
Because our forefathers did not serve forever.
Nope. You were supposed to serve 2 years in
Feinstein
Congress.
getting wheeled in.
Yep.
We had the other guy that was there when he was 100. He was going there with a diaper. We got a president that can't remember what day it is, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter anymore. This is just a big facade. So what do we have here? Do we really have a democracy, a republic? Do we really have a republic, a democratic republic anymore? I find it hard. But the difference is, we don't just walk the walk, we talk the talk. I went down there, and I know you were going to go down there, but you had an issue.
Yep.
But we went down there, and when we got something to say, we're not afraid to say it.
What was interesting was, as I said, I had a conversation with City Councilor Michelle Dion, and I also had a conversation with one of our viewers, and this is why I brought this up to Michelle. Do you know that little area down at Dave's Beach, or the Dave's Beach area, that Linda and Billy Damaris worked on? They put in tables, and they want people to be able to use it for cookouts or parties or outdoor activities and whatnot. Do you know the city doesn't own that property?
No, I did not. I have to be perfectly frank. I did not know that.
State doesn't own it either.
Who owns it?
Nobody knows.
Wasn't the Boyd Center
Yes,
down there at one time?
Yes, it was.
I wonder if they own that.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Mike Rodrigues was asked by a city councilor, Michelle Dion, who owns the land, and he says, to be very honest, I don't know.
You think we might find out?
Yeah.
Since we spent money on it?
Well, this is the thing. Linda got a lot of donations for that from Home Depot. I don't know about Bishop Electric, but there were a lot of people who donated time, money, and goods. And if we don't own that, what are we doing that?
Well, that's a very good question, but then again, as I said, this is our government. There's no oversight, no accountability. I mean, all you got to do is look at the city.
Right.
All the crimes going on, no accountability. And you said you had 30 ATVs driving up and down your street at 10 o'clock at night again. So here we go. Summer's coming, and what is Paulie going to do about this? Nothing as usual. Or maybe when we get close to the election, he'll try to do something. Who cares? But that's the problem. But they gave him money for a roof at the Bank Street Armory. They didn't put a roof on.
Out of CPA
They
money.
went back and asked for more money, and they gave it to him.
Yep.
Nobody said, what do you mean? We gave you money. Where did that money go?
And I got an answer to that.
22 windows.
Yep.
22 windows. Nobody ever found out, even though they knew, because somebody went in front of that council who knew it and said, I know who did it, but I refuse to answer it.
Right.
He should have been fired on the spot.
Yep.
But instead, he got a promotion.
That's right.
So this is the problem. When you work for the government, if you fit, there's no accountability. Remember what we heard live. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your head down.
And
It'll
people
go
forget,
away.
that's right.
If you're connected, it's not going to go. And we know what happened. Was there an investigation of the alleged interaction with a child? No. It's like, go get yourself a lawyer and let's see what happens.
And that's exactly what Paul told me, because when I spoke to him on the phone this week, I had mentioned that to him, and he said, I told that parent to get an attorney and to follow the process in that.
Yeah.
No, the process starts at the school, and it should begin at the school. And that person should have been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation by the school and the Fall River Police. But instead, they did what they did.
But yeah, but here again shows what Coogan's from that entire thing, cover-upville. It's like North Korea. The school department's worse than any other department, but it happens in every department, cover-ups. Malone, we couldn't do anything, we don't have a plan. Well, why didn't you implement the plan? There's still no plan.
That's right.
We got a child supposedly inappropriately contacted by an adult, or school department doesn't do it, but go get yourself a lawyer, go through the criminal. But you think the school department would have a policy? But there is a policy about sexual harassment. As I said, there's a federal policy that was adopted. But that's their excuse. But you see, nobody ever reminds everybody that why didn't they now create a plan?
Right.
After Malone, why didn't they come up with a plan? He not only harassed female employees, sexual harassment in his lawsuits, he violated the Age Discrimination Act and the American with Disabilities Act. So you had 3 federal laws that he violated, and he had done it before. That's the sad part.
Right.
He had done it before in Swampscott, in Brockton.
And the worst part about that whole Malone case was the fact that the teachers or the employees that were involved or victims didn't file complaints at first.
They were afraid.
They were afraid.
They're intimidated.
Right, and what they did was they quit their jobs and went to work somewhere else and then filed their complaints.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was wrong. I think they should have stuck it out.
It's a reminder that there's intimidation and corruption going on. Now, do you think if that person who had inappropriately approached a student wasn't one of the connected, that he would not be gone and there would have been a full investigation by the school department too? But there has to be a standard discipline. You go to Boston Fire Department, they have a manual of progressive discipline. You go to any good city that has somebody that has some leadership ability. Why is it? There's still no plan. See, that's the key. It's intentional. They don't want a plan. How many times are they going to say we can't do anything because we don't have a plan before they create a plan?
Right.
This is why we have a problem with leadership in this community now, with this mayor. You can't keep using that as an excuse. What, you're going to tell me a school department with all the underage children they deal with doesn't have a plan? Doesn't have a disciplinary plan and a plan on how to handle any kind of inappropriate sexual behavior and actions?
Any inappropriate.
And anything,
yeah.
anything inappropriate. They should have a system on how you deal with every discipline. Like I said, if you go to places that
I should be able to open the book to page 97.
But I'm going to tell you why they don't want that. Same reason Fall River didn't want it. Because I used to be fighting about this all the time in the union. Because they do one discipline. There was 3 types of discipline. Discipline for the people that fit, which was no discipline. People for the discipline they didn't like, where they tried to fire them for anything. And the discipline for who they didn't care about, and then they might do it by the law. Mm-hmm. I brought down the Progressive Discipline Manual from Boston. I got a copy of it from their president, who was a good friend of mine. Brought it down, put it on the chief's desk, looked at it, opened the drawer, threw it in the drawer, gone. Never addressed. You know why they don't want plans and progressive discipline? Because you have to do it to everybody.
Right, and it's accountability.
If your friend gets busted, they gotta do it the way the manual says. No manual.
No policy.
It's optional.
Right.
And there should be nothing optional about discipline. So that's the problem. That you wonder why I don't like politicians? There's another reason.
Well, politicians are a tough crew to crack sometimes, as you know. But the interesting thing is that we see this all the time. And to put something in place like a progressive disciplinary policy would require accountability of the administration, the supervisors, the department heads, and none of those people want to be accountable. They want to be able to say, oh, don't worry about it. Keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and everyone will forget about it. Or they'll say, you know what, you're fired. I'm not going to tolerate this anymore from you. I don't like you. Get out of here. Yeah. Okay? Or they'll say, well, I'll think about what I'm going to do with you. Come back later.
Well, I'll bring back that quick case because it's getting close to the end of time to show how obscene these things can become. We had 2 individuals who were caught selling stolen goods out of a trunk of a car at fire department headquarters on duty. It was on the front page of the Herald News.
Wasn't that
so I will maintain some degree of journalism, journalistic integrity, because I have proof of this. Mm-hmm. I still got the newspaper. They were busted. Busted. You know what happened to them? Nothing. All over the front news paper, they actually confiscated some golf shoes from the police chief at the golf course. Nothing. Continued without a finding, no departmental disciplinary action, no legal disciplinary action, because they were connected.
Right.
Is that fair? I'll let you answer that question.
How about the discipline where they suspended them for 3 days and they were on
3 days off? Yeah. Yeah, we'll let you out there determine. The silent majority.
Yeah, we'll have to hear from them, and we'll hear from them, I'm sure. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day.